The German prisoner laughed at American coffee. He knew something was wrong the moment he smelled the coffee. That's what stayed with him later. Not the guards. Not the fences. Not even the silence of the camp. It was the smell. Warm. Strong. Familiar. And in a place like that, it didn't make sense. He stood still for a moment in the cold morning air. His boots were damp from the ground, and his fingers felt stiff, like they didn't fully belong to him anymore. Around him, the camp was quiet in the way tired places are quiet. Men stood in a loose line. No one spoke much, just slow movement. A cough here, a shift there. They all looked the same. Worn down, thin, eyes that had seen too much. They were prisoners now. Just a few days ago, he had still been a soldier. He had been running through smoke, shouting orders, trying to believe in things that were already falling apart. But now he stood in line, holding a dented metal cup, waiting, and that smell came again. Coffee. He frowned slightly. It didn't fit the picture in his head. He had prepared himself for something else. Cold treatment, harsh voices, maybe even humiliation. It was easier that way. If you expect the worst, you don't get surprised. But this was different. The line moved forward. He followed without thinking too much, step by step. Each step felt strange, like he was walking into something he didn't understand. At the front, there was a table. Rough, simple. Behind it stood a man in an apron. An American. Sleeves rolled up, moving calmly. No shouting. No anger. Just pouring something from a large metal pot into each cup. Steam rose into the cold air. The prisoner watched carefully. He didn't trust it. When it was his turn, he stepped forward slowly. His shoulders were tense, even if he didn't show it. He held out his cup. For a second, he expected something. A harsh word. A push. Maybe nothing at all. But instead, the man simply took the cup and poured. No eye contact. No expression. Just the quiet sound of liquid hitting metal. That was it. The cup was handed back. The prisoner pulled it toward himself quickly, almost like he didn't want it taken away again. The heat surprised him. It felt real. Too real. He stepped aside. For a moment, he just stood there, staring into the cup. Coffee. He almost let out a small laugh, but it didn't fully come out. Coffee, he whispered under his breath. It sounded strange even saying it. Around him, other men were holding their cups the same way. Carefully. Some looked confused. Some looked almost afraid to drink it. And some just stared. Because this wasn't what they expected either. He lifted the cup slowly toward his face. The smell grew stronger, and suddenly, without warning, something inside him tightened. It reminded him of something. A small kitchen. A quiet morning. A voice calling him to sit down. He pushed the thought away quickly. This was not the place for memories like that. Not here. Not now. He tried to bring back his guard. That hard feeling he had been holding on to. So he smirked slightly, almost out of habit. Like this didn't matter. Like it was just a drink. And then he took a sip. But the moment it touched his tongue, everything changed. He froze. The smirk disappeared instantly. The taste was not what he expected. It wasn't weak. It wasn't bitter in a careless way. It was warm, full, properly made. Someone had taken time with it, and that didn't make sense. He didn't swallow right away. For a second, he just stood there, the coffee still in his mouth, like his body didn't know what to do. Then slowly, he swallowed. His throat tightened just a little. He blinked. The camp around him didn't change. Same cold air. Same quiet men. Same fences. But inside him, something shifted. Just a little. He lowered the cup and looked at it again, as if it might explain itself. Why? Why give this? He had expected to be treated like a problem, or worse, like nothing at all. But this was something else. He let out a quiet breath. It wasn't a laugh this time. It sounded unsure. He glanced back toward the table. The American was still there. Same steady movement, same calm face, pouring cup after cup, not rushing, not reacting, just doing his job, and somehow that made it feel even stranger. The prisoner watched him longer than he meant to. Then he looked down again. The cup trembled slightly in his hand. He told himself it was the cold. But deep down, he knew it wasn't just that. He lifted the cup again. This time, slower. No smirk. No resistance. Just careful. He took another sip, and this time, he let himself feel it. The warmth spread through his chest. Not just his body, but something deeper. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. Around him, the others had grown quieter. Even the small whispers were gone. Men stood still, holding their cups close. No one talked about it, but you could see it on their faces. That same confusion. That same quiet change. One man sat on a wooden crate, staring into his cup like it held something important. Another kept running his thumb along the edge, over and over, like he needed something to hold on to. No one joked. No one complained. And that silence said everything. The prisoner swallowed again and breathed out slowly. He tried to hold onto his old thinking. The clear lines. Us and them. Right and wrong. Strong and weak. But those lines were starting to blur. Because this moment didn't fit into any of that. This wasn't cruelty. But it also wasn't kindness in a way that asked for something back. It was just given. And sometimes, that's the hardest thing to understand. He shifted slightly and looked around. The camp was still the same. Barbed wire in the distance. Guards walking slowly. Boots on dirt. Everything still said one thing. You are a prisoner. And yet, in the middle of it, men stood quietly, holding warm cups in both hands. Like it mattered. He looked down again. For a second, he saw his reflection in the surface. It moved slightly with his hand. And for a brief moment, he didn't see a soldier. He saw someone tired. Someone older, and somehow younger at the same time. Someone who had been carrying too much for too long. He swallowed hard and looked away. But the feeling stayed. And then, the memory came back again. Clearer this time. A small table. A chipped cup. Morning light through a window. His mother's voice, soft and steady. Drink it before it gets cold. He hadn't thought about that in years. Not during the fighting. Not during the nights when sleep didn't come. There was no room for memories like that. Until now, his grip on the cup loosened slightly. It didn't feel like just an object anymore. It felt heavier. Not in weight, but in meaning. And then, suddenly, he heard a voice close to him. More. He looked up quickly. The American was standing there, holding the pot. For a second, he didn't answer. The words stayed in the air. More. Not loud. Not forced. Just offered. He hesitated. Part of him wanted to say no, to stay distant, to keep control of something, because sometimes refusing is the only control you have left. But another part of him, a quieter part, didn't move. He looked down at his cup, then back at the man. There was no pressure in his face, no expectation, just a simple question. The prisoner gave a small nod, barely noticeable. The man took the cup gently, like it mattered, and poured again. Steam rose between them. For a moment, their hands were close, but they didn't touch. The cup was handed back. "Careful," the American said softly. "It's hot." The prisoner nodded again, this time slower. He stepped back. The cup felt heavier now, not because of the coffee, but because of what it meant. He looked at it for a long moment, longer than before. Then he lifted it. His hands trembled slightly, not from the cold, from something else. He took a sip, and this time he didn't fight it. The warmth settled deeper, and something inside him softened, not completely, but enough. Around him, the camp went on as usual. Nothing had changed on the outside, but inside, something had. He wasn't thinking about orders, or ranks, or even what would happen next. Just this moment, this cup, this quiet pause. He lowered the cup slowly and took a long breath, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like he had to prepare for the next blow. He just stood there, breathing, holding something warm. And in that moment, he wasn't a prisoner, he wasn't a soldier, he was just a man, standing in the cold, remembering what it felt like to be treated like one. He looked around again. The others seemed different now, not stronger, not weaker, just human. The space between them felt smaller somehow. No one said anything, but it was there, in the way they held their cups, in the way they stood quietly, in the way no one rushed away. He lifted the cup one last time, took a slow sip, then lowered it. The morning light was pale, but steady. The war wasn't over. Nothing was fixed. There were still questions, still uncertainty, still fear waiting somewhere ahead. But something small had changed, and sometimes small things matter more than we think, because they remind us of something we forget too easily, that even in the worst places, even between enemies, a simple act can break something hard inside us. Not all at once, but enough to begin. He didn't smile, but his face softened just a little. You could miss it if you weren't paying attention. He wrapped both hands around the cup, holding onto the last bit of warmth, and for the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to feel something different. Not anger, not fear, just quiet. And sometimes that quiet is where healing begins. Like subscribe, stories that truly stay with you.